Shalom and welcome to His Israel. This is Karen Hannah in Jerusalem, and we are here to explore the very special and fascinating and interesting month of Kislev, the 9th Hebrew month. Shalom, shalom Debbie, and welcome to all those who are joining. It's lovely to see you here with us. So I hope you'll really enjoy this exploration into the month of Kislev. But let's begin with a blessing. May it be your will, O Lord our God and the God of our forefathers, that you inaugurate this month of Kislev upon us for goodness and blessing. Now, we have a ladies group here in Jerusalem called Tikva Tea in Jerusalem, and every month we make a little memory card, and on the card we include a verse from the Bible and a quote. And the ones for this month are so good, I really would like to share with you. Shalom, shalom, it's good to see you all joining. And may you just be blessed in our sharing today. So the memory verse this month is from Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, which is, as you well know, is the Shema. But we're just focusing on the little portion that says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart." And we can just think about what that means. And the quote is actually from the book The Little Prince, and it says, "What is essential is invisible to the eye." So think of those two connected. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and what is essential is invisible to the eye. Right, now let's think of the month of Kislev. Kislev is always falls during the final days of autumn or fall. It's on the very threshold between autumn and winter. And in the northern hemisphere, especially in parts further north, we don't see it as much in Israel, but in the northern hemisphere you see the beautiful vibrant colors of the red and gold as the leaves are changing color. And but here we also experience the days getting shorter and the darkness increasing, and the cold of the winter is beginning to set in. And what happens during the month? The historical festival of Hanukkah is celebrated always on the 25th of Kislev. And so Hanukkah, in the midst of this darkness, the darkness of the winter month here in Israel in the north, these beautiful little flickering lights of the Chanukiah invite us into that sacred space of their warmth and holiness. Those of you who do light the Hanukkah candles, you will notice this. Bonjour Marcel, it's nice to see people joining. Welcome. Now there's actually a story in the Talmud about Hanukkah, this season. And you have to bear in mind that back in Genesis, when Adam and Eve were created in the Garden of Eden, the light that they were enjoying there as they walked and talked, it says, with the Lord, was the very special light of his presence. It wasn't the light that he created on the fourth day of the sun and the moon and the stars. That the light they experienced was the light of his presence. And that when they were exiled after their sin, and the light of his presence was withdrawn, and they could see that effect in their own bodies, because suddenly they realized they were naked. The light had gone. And so this story says, when Adam and Eve saw the sun go down, they were panic-stricken, thinking that the setting of the sun was the consequence of their sin. and that this new intense darkness would spell their death. They spent that entire first night weeping until dawn broke, and they realized to their great relief that this was simply the way of the natural world. Day was followed by night, and night was followed by day. So there we have the very imaginative story of how they must have felt when they experienced the first sunset and the darkness coming in upon them. And sometimes, we, like Adam and Eve, find ourselves during our lifetime in certain confusing and dark situations, which is often called the dark night of the soul. And we can forget that morning will follow night, that the light does break through in the darkness. And so we can become anxious and even panic at the thought that there would just be no end to this difficulty and this darkness. But then God, in his chesed, which means his love and mercy, gradually begins to shine his light more brightly in our lives, and we see this dawning of hope and the new day. Also in Genesis, we read about the story of Abraham, and when God said to him, "Now look towards the heavens and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he said to him, "So shall your descendants be." Now, if you read the text closely, you're all familiar with that passage, I'm sure, and if you read the text closely, you'll discover that this happens during daylight, that it was dark and you couldn't see the stars, and that's why God said, if you can do that. But what was he asking Avram then? He was saying, even though you can't see the stars, they are there. And so it takes faith. If you can take faith in my word that your descendants will be as the stars, then so will it be. But of course we also understand the obvious fact that there's no way Abraham could count the stars even if he could see them. They'd be too numerous. But there's a Hasidic rabbi, Yehuda Altar, who was born in the 19th century, and he gives an interesting midrash, like a little interesting interpretation of this passage. And he says another little aspect. He says, well, we can look on God's promise to Abraham as qualitative, not quantitative. It wasn't that he had to know the quantity of the stars, but he was saying your descendants will have the same quality as the stars, that they would light up the darkness. They would have the ability to, even in a very depraved and immoral part of the world, as we would see in later history, like with Noah and with Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, that even in those very dark times of history, when there was a lot of immorality and depravity, that then the descendants of Abraham, the children of God, should be able to shine into that darkness and even do the impossible by shining his light, by reflecting his light of truth into the world and into the darkness. Now we do find a verse in Proverbs, it's chapter 20 and verse 27, that says, "The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord." So what receives his light and what can shine his light? It's the spirit of man, not what you see with the eyes, but something that is conveyed through the Spirit, by the Spirit of God. So as a child of God, we have that potential because of what he puts in our spirits and the light of his truth and presence that can shine and be lights in a world that seems to be growing darker every day. Well, we don't bring an end to the darkness. We're not the sun. We're more like the moon, that we can receive the sun's light and have the potential to bring that light into a world that is suffering so badly, suffering in the darkness. And I love that verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 6, which says, "For God, who said, 'Light shall shine out of darkness,' is the one who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Messiah." And well, the very next verse in that chapter tells us that we are just jars of clay, just jars that have been molded by the hand of the potter for his purposes, and that he can fill us with the treasures of his love and mercy and compassion. And so what he places in us, we are then able to pour out wherever he places us for his glory, of course, because he is the light and the truth and the love, and we are just the jars of clay. But I just like to think a bit more about what is this amazing light, this life-bearing light of God. It was this hidden primordial light of his presence that, if we go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and I came across this paragraph in a book by the Jewish author and teacher Simon Appersdorf, and he gives a description that I think is interesting of this light. He says, "It is like a light going through a prism and being broken out into different colors. If it's coming through a holiday, a mitzvah, which is a good deed that somebody does, or lighting candles of Shabbat and the festivals, it's the same light bouncing into the world and being refracted through different means." So it's as if God's light is coming through a prism that splits out into all these beautiful different colors, and the different ways that he brings his light into the world. And he says we pick it up and experience it in different ways, but it's all the same light. And I like to think of that where there's the light of truth and the light of love, that wherever that may be, that is a little reflection of God's presence, of his love and truth, because he is love and he is truth and he is light. So the deepest darkness really sets the stage for the brightest light. And so the work and what God puts of his light into each of us, his children, is unique, and it's special, and just that little beam that you can shine out, nobody else can. And he's made it that way so that to fulfill his purposes in our lives and in the lives of whoever we may come in contact with. So each person's story carries with it a distinct message and a lesson that will inspire others and enable us to fulfill his purpose in our lives, wherever we are and whatever the time is, that if we trust his light to be shining, it will accomplish his purposes and bring light into the lives of others, which is rather a lovely thought, because it's all him. We just have to be here. Now I'd like to just quickly think about what is the connection between this light and the Hanukkah menorah, the Chanukia, because the Chanukia is the central symbol of Hanukkah, and we light the lights of the Chanukia. And so what is the connection with his light? Now, but of course the Chanukia is directly related to the beautiful golden menorah that stood in the holy place of the temple. And that menorah represented the word of God and the light of his presence and the light of his truth. And what was used was this pure oil to bring the light, the pure oil of the Ruach HaKodesh, his Holy Spirit, or Spirit of Holiness, that causes this light and fuels it to be able to shine forth. So I just want to read you this lovely section from the prophet Zechariah, chapter 4, verses 2 through 6. "I saw a menorah of gold with 7 lamps on it, with 7 moldings in the 7 lamps. There were 2 olive trees beside the menorah, one on each side of it. Then I asked the angel, "What do these things mean, my Lord?" And the angel said to me, "Do you not know?" And I said, "No, my Lord." Then he said, "This is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord." And in Hebrew, those words, "not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit," are 7 Hebrew words. And so we see that he's saying it's not might nor power, but my Spirit that will accomplish whatever my purposes are. And it showed Zechariah this other meaning to be found in the light of the menorah, that it was only his Spirit that would overcome might and power, which is what we remember, because in the story of Hanukkah, there was the occupation of the Greco-Roman army in Jerusalem, in Israel, and this little band from a priestly family called the Maccabees, they rose up, and when the Greco-Roman army was trying to force them to sacrifice pigs and bow down to the false god that they'd placed in the temple, this priestly family said, "No, we have to stand up and put our lives on the line. We have to just, even in the face of this impossible odds of this great, well-trained army, we have to stand and fight for the truth and the light of God and of his word," which they did, and miracle of miracles, they had the victory and they overcame. But what the menorah was there to remind them, and what was the very first thing they did when they achieved the victory, they went to the temple, which had been desecrated, and they cleansed it, and they set up the menorah again, and they'd found the one little cruse of special pure olive oil that was used to light the menorah. And they did so, and they said, even though we only have one little jar of oil, we're going to do it in faith. And sure enough, the other miracle was that oil, those lights of the menorah, kept shining for all 8 days until they could process and produce more of this special oil to light the menorah with. So there we have the double miracle, the miracle of the victory over the army, but as they lit those lights, they remembered it's not by our might, it wasn't by our power, but it was by the Spirit of God that we could do this. And by the Spirit of God, that menorah, the Chanukia, kept lit for all those days. So we just can rejoice in that miracle and trust for the miracle of God's Spirit in our own lives, for whatever he brings in our path and whatever he expects us to do. I just love this prayer based on this light in the Siddur, the Jewish daily book of prayer, which says, "For with you is the source of life, and by your light we see light. Extend your loving kindness to those who know you, and your righteousness to the upright of heart." And we can say amen to that. Now, every month we also look at a woman of the Bible. And this month, the woman that corresponds with Kislev is Rachel. Now, I mean, you can't talk about Rachel without thinking of Leah, because Rachel and Leah were always so connected together in the whole story in the Bible. But they were two powerful women who, together with Sarah and Rebecca, became the mothers of Israel, our Imaot, as we say. And it was only at Rachel's death, actually, and that was on the road to Ephrat, but it was only at her death that they were physically separated. And then later, when Leah died, she was buried in the cave of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, where Jacob also was buried, as well as the other mothers and fathers, Abram and Sarah, and Isaac and Rivka, or Rebecca. And Leah, she was mother to the majority of the tribes, to 6 of the 12. So it was an honor that she deserved to be buried there with Jacob in the cave at Machpelah. But in her solitary burial on the roadway, Rachel was in a position, as we read, to weep to heaven for the children of Israel. And when they were led into captive, or when they were captive and led into exile, they passed along the very road where she was buried. And the prophet Jeremiah, who of course foresaw and lamented the destruction of the temple and the exile of the Jews to Babylon, he describes Rachel as Rachel Imenu, Rachel our mother, as a mother weeping for her children. So, I'll read you that passage because it is beautiful. It's in Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 15 and 16. It says, "A voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. It is Rachel weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children, for they are gone from their land." Rachel's anguish is heard, and God reassures and comforts her as it continues. He says, "Refrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded. There is hope for your future, and your children shall return again to their borders." Amen. So this prophetic account, it intimates that how Rachel was viewed as the mother, essentially, of all the 12 tribes, because it says she was weeping for her children, all of the people of Israel. So we can consider that it was her compassion for her sister Leah, in allowing Leah to be married to Jacob in the first place, and because of that, her grace towards her sister, that enabled Leah to bear the children that she did. So it's fun, actually, in Rachel's merit, that many women go and pray at her tomb, which is Rachel's tomb near Bethlehem. Even though I must comment on this, that historians and Bible scholars and archaeologists are actually believing that because Jeremiah talks about Ramah, where her voice was heard, that is actually in the Shomron in Samaria, near a place called Ramah. But be that as it may, many women still go there and pray that God will hear them for their family, if there are any issues connected with family or bearing children, because Rachel is considered Rachel Imenu, a special mother of Israel. So in this light of her role, she's often depicted as a shepherdess with sheep, shepherding her sheep. And she's the one matriarch who has a very strong physical connection with the land of Israel. Now, who were her sons? Her sons were Joseph and Benjamin. And funnily enough, so her grave would be, if it's near Ramah, in the area of Benjamin as well. And her son Benjamin is the only one of the tribes who were born in the land. Well, just think about it. It was Moses was a descendant of Leah, and he redeemed the Israelites from Egypt. But it was Joshua, Rachel's descendant, who was able to lead the nation into the land. So there we see that connection with the land as well. And again, it was Leah's son Judah, Yehudah, who's destined for lasting kingship. And from him would come King David and King Messiah. And both Judah and King David epitomized humility and repentance. You can see that in their accounts in the Bible. They both epitomized humility and repentance rather than charisma and self-ambition. They were called Ba'alei Tshuva, sinners who repented. But now Rachel's son Joseph, he was always called Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph the righteous. That he just seemed to be perfectly righteous, and he was a servant leader and lived a life totally committed to the will of the God of his fathers. So it's just comparing and thinking of Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah the son of Joseph from Rachel, who had the mission of preparing the world for redemption, and Mashiach ben David. Now, you might not know, but even in rabbinic writings, it talks about Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah the son of Joseph, and Mashiach ben David, Messiah the son of David. So the son of Joseph would be a servant leader who would be perfectly righteous. And if we think of Yeshua as Mashiach ben Yosef, but then there would be Mashiach ben David, the king Messiah, who would accomplish the final redemption for all eternity when he reigns from Jerusalem as King of Kings. So we see this comparison between Joseph and David. And so it just in this way, it's just an interesting thought, but in this way we do see how the destinies of Rachel and Leah were intertwined and would work together, this unity in the redemptive purposes of God in Messiah. So it's all very interesting and fascinating, but let's just give another thought here before we move on, just bringing this connection of Rachel and the land into Benjamin. We'll be looking at Benjamin in a minute, but it was Rachel who saw that the children of Israel, she saw them with a mother's heart as her children, but also the children of God, who in his eyes were always worthy of his mercy and unconditional love. So there we see the three-stranded cord comprised of the God of Israel and his love and compassion for his children, his people. So there we have the land, the God of Israel, the people of Israel, and finally his land. Those three can never be separated if we want the full light of his truth to shine forth. And it's so wonderful to think of God's promise to Rachel that your children will return to their borders. And then we begin to see the final redemption blossoming forth. So now we just have a quick look at, because we only have a few minutes left, but at the tribe that's associated with the month of Kislev is Benjamin, Rachel's second son. And Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch wrote in his excellent commentary, The Pentateuch, that Benjamin merited having the temple stand in his portion of the land for three reasons. This is the important thing with Benjamin. The temple was actually associated with Benjamin, Judah, and Levi, the Levites. But why Benjamin? Because he was the only one of Jacob's sons born in the land of Israel. Second, he was the only brother who did not take part in the sale of Joseph and then lying to their father Jacob. And third, Benjamin cared for his father Jacob in his old age. So these three factors establish that he represented the characteristics that the temple of God itself wanted to shine forth and represent. It was intended to be a symbol of God's presence, a place of his divine love that united his people as his children, as family, in their love for him and for one another. So we see this beautiful symbol of the temple standing in the land of Benjamin and in a strip of Judah's territory, because Judah, of course, had inherited the Davidic line of kingship, and from his line would come King of Kings, Messiah, who at the end of days would be reigning from that very place where the Holy Temple stood. And of course, the Levites and the Kohanim were included with Judah as they performed the worship and services in the temple. So we see a very lovely connection there. So to finish off, let's look at the word Hanukkah, which means dedication. And it's just a very special time for us to rededicate our own lives as temples for the glory of God. And we know that Yeshua celebrated the festival of Hanukkah because in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 22, we see at that time the feast of dedication, which is the feast of Hanukkah, took place at Jerusalem. It was winter, and he was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. So it's just a very special time of the year, which epitomizes dedication, wholehearted commitment, and devotion to God, even to the point of laying down one's life for his name's sake. So may we dedicate our lives afresh to God and his word, and allow the light of Messiah to shine more brightly through our lives to bring hope to those in darkness around us. So that's it. Please be looking out on the His Israel page for the meditations of Kislev, which Cindy has put together very beautifully. And we'll be also having live lightings of the Hanukkah candles and some sharing during the days of Hanukkah, which are between the 13th and 23rd of December. So please try and join us then as well. And may we all continue to shine on his love and light. And many blessings to you. Amen.